Hey guys, Fate here. This is gonna be my first tutorial ever, really. So you're gonna have to give me some time when I sometimes forget what I'm supposed to say. However, this is going to be a tutorial on real VR physics hand-to-body connection. So we're just gonna kind of jump straight into it. What I'm also gonna teach you how to make is an AdForces rigid body player movement system. And in this we combine the climbing system into it. And the way the hand to body connection works is really simple. We just need to make our hands have physics and a force applied to them, and then we just apply the opposite force to the player. So we're going to start by importing the SteamVR assets. I'm presuming you guys know how to do that. If you don't, you just go to the asset store and click import. So what we're going to do first of all is just go into the scene, just make a plane. We need something to stand on, so you're just going to create something that you want to stand on. Then you're going to need the camera rig. You can use the player controller, but I prefer to just use the camera rig. And then on this you're going to want to put a rigid body straight away. You want to put a bit of decent mass on this, maybe 270, somewhere around that, the real weight of like a normal human being. And you want to freeze its rotation. This is to prevent it from going on this axis, and spinning, which can cause heavy motion sickness. And then you want to create an empty, and what this is going to be, this is going to be our main rigid body. So this is going to control everything in its child. So you're just going to put that under, and then we're going to create some little hands to use. So you're just going to create a cube. I'm presuming you guys know the basics of Unity, like how to add stuff, because you shouldn't really be learning stuff like this if you don't know how to do that. So I'm just going to create these little like hand things that have little like nudges on the end, and you're going to create a couple of empties. This is going to be hand, physical, R, and then you just make one for the left. You can just duplicate it, and then you put your colliders under there. So now you've got these, and you give them a rigid body. So everything needs a rigid body that you want to have physics. Everything needs a rigid body. And we're pretty much ready to get coding, except you also want a capsule, which is going to basically be the collider our player uses, and you're going to offset it on the Y by 1. I'm going to set the radius to like 0.3. And then you're going to give that a position constraint to camera. This is so that it constantly follows our head and moves around with our head, and you're going to unfreeze it on the Y. And then what we're going to do is actually start coding. So I'm going to make a new folder called scripts, and I'm going to make a folder, a C# script called player movement, like so. Also going to want to do is go window, SteamVR input, and we're going to want to click yes. This is going to generate the actual thing the SteamVR software needs to track our controllers in the 3D space. So once that's all made, it's going to create all your bindings, and we're actually going to have to add our own custom binding, and we're going to call this joystick. So what this is going to do is you're going to assign this, you're going to name the localized string joystick as well. This is what's going to actually take the binding from our Joy-Con on our controller. So you're going to click bind, and it's going to load this up, and then you're going to click edit, and then after that loads, you're going to delete these two sections from the joystick, and you're going to plus, and then you click joystick, and then it's going to, at the bottom, it's going to say position, pen, and hit, and then you should see joystick here, and click tick, and then you should be all good to go. You hit save personal binding, save, and then when you've clicked save, it will save, but the screen won't go away. So all you have to do is click cancel, then click save and generate, and then we should be all good to go. Doesn't really matter. That's also another script we need to make. Physics hands. We're going to make a script called physics hands, and this is going to control positioning of hands. Okay, so what you're going to want to assign in here is a public transform hand target. Now this is going to be what our hand actually assigns the adds the force in the direction to, and then we're going to make a float. This is just going to be force amount. Then you're going to make a void update, and you're going to want to make some public vector3s at the top. So the first one is going to be direction, because basically what this is going to do is we need to tell the script with the climbing, our player movement script, which direction to move this. So we want to say direction is equal to, you probably want to put this in the fixed update as well. You put all physics items in the fixed update. So we're going to say direction is equal to hand target dot position minus this dot transform dot position. So what this is going to say is, this is basically the formula for applying force in a direction. So if you get this the wrong way around, then it's going to apply it in the other way, and you don't want that. And then actually you'd probably be better off calling this position, and we're going to make this a local vector3, because I got it the wrong way around, that's my bad. And then you want to say position, because this is where we actually set it to do its thing. We want to say this is equal to direction dot normalized multiplied by direction dot magnitude multiplied by force amount. Now what this is saying is basically it's saying, hey, take our position, which is the vector3 that we set at the top, so it's all going to return to this, and it's the normalized direction, which is the length, and then this is the distance, and then this is just an amount we multiply it by, so the hands don't work properly. And then all we need to say is this dot get component rigid body. So we're accessing the rigid body of this component right now, and we're saying dot add force, and all you need to put in the brackets is position, because add force can take vector3 and convert it into a force for our hands. So we just want to take this, put physics hand on it, and then we want to just set the right target to be controller right, and that one to be controller left, and we're going to set a force of like 10,000, and then hit play. So now hopefully we should see, wait a second, no, we fell through the floor. Oh, we didn't give the main, this thing a rigid body. We gave this the rigid body, which isn't right. So we just put the rigid body on the wrong thing. Make sure main rigid body has the rigid body, and now you'll see where our controllers are. If mine wants to update, these physics hands are now going to be tracking it, just due to that little add force component we added. Now, there is a different way you can do rotation. You can use add torque and all sorts, but I just like to use a configurable joint. And on the left and right controller, I just give them a rigid body that's kinematic. So it's not going to actually affect anything with it. All it's going to do is just make this basically follow this rotation. It's super simple, and it works. It's what I found works. You want to set that rotation value quite high, but not as high as a position, so that your rotation can actually be affected by position. So now you'll see that our hands now rotate properly, position themselves properly. So does the left. Rotates properly, positions properly, and that would collide with things if we were to try and push against things. The hands wouldn't go through. That's what that entails. Now we have to make an actual movement script. So what we want to call up here is a public float speed. Obviously you're going to need some speed, and then there's a special way that we can get input from the controllers. So you call, well, actually at the top you need to say using valve.vr. This is basically going to access all the SteamVR components. And then you want to call a SteamVR action source down here. SteamVR action source, and then this is going to be the controller that we get this from. And we can say this is equal to SteamVR action source dot any. No, wait a second. I think I've typed this in wrong. I think it needs to be okay. So first of all, we're going to declare a public float speed, and then we're going to say using Valve VR at the top. This we just write in ourselves. Basically, this just says use all the libraries that SteamVR gives us, and then we're going to make a public SteamVR input sources. So you go input underscore sources, and then that's equal to Steam. Or we can just copy this. Really, we don't need to write this out again. Dot any. And we also need to say we'll just call this like our controller. So basically this is for position and rotation, so we can get position, so we can get the right joystick rotation and movement, and the left joystick position. So you then want to call a public SteamVR action underscore vector 2, and then this is going to be our joystick. And actually we can rename this value to movement, so this is going to be our controller for movement, and we can call another one for rotation. And then what we want to do is we're going to call public rigid body hand R and hand L. This is going to be so we can get the thing from this and apply our stuff in the opposite direction. And we're also going to just make a rigid body RB. This is just going to be so we can declare RB across the whole script instead of declaring a local variable every time. Now we're going to make a couple of vector 3s as well. We're going to make one called direction vector 3 move X, vector 3 move Y, and vector 3 rotation or rot. We're also going to need a quaternion, so I'm just going to call this Q for now. You can call it whatever you want: quaternion rotation, quaternion, whatever you need to call it. And we also want a public transform forward axes. Now our forward axes is very important because it's going to tell our basically our force system to say, hey, this is where the camera's looking, apply the force in front of where we're looking. You can obviously change this if you were to code it in so it looks at where the hands are looking, or the right hand's looking, or the left hand's looking. But what I like to do is create an empty called forward axes, and then with the rotation constraint you want to basically say make it follow the camera's rotation only on the Y. So all it's going to do is follow this rotation. So if we look up, it's not going to apply a force upwards, it's only going to apply a force in the way we're looking, flattened basically. You want to flatten it. And you also want a position constraint because it's what we use to rotate locally a bit later on. Now you're going to need a start function, which is where we're going to call our rigid body. We're going to say RB equals this dot get component rigid body, right? So what this is saying is say, hey, look at this component, look at our object right now, find a component that's rigid body and set it to this rigid body we declared at the top. And then you're also going to need an update. Now we're going to have two little functions in here. We're going to have position calculator. You can name these whatever you want. I'm just going to name mine position calculator, and rotation calculator. Now you're going to make a little void down here and call it position calculator. Did I not spell these the same? I didn't. So we're going to make one called position calculator, and then you're also going to just make another one called rotation calculator. And these two are basically going to not guess, but this is calculating our position we want to be based on our Joy-Con. So all you have to do in this is, there's not really a lot to fill it with, but we want to call that direction vector 3 we made at the top. We want to say that's equal to a new vector 3, so we can change it. And we want to call joystick, and then you want to say which hand you want it on. So we want to call movement, and you put it in the brackets because what this is going to do is it's going to mask it to our controller that we set in here. So if we was to go into here, I'm not sure, hopefully it'll pop up because, yeah. So we've got rotation, which we can set to our right hand, and movement, which we can set to our left hand. So as you can see, it's gonna mask it to whatever selection we choose here. So it's only gonna get the joystick value from these hands, and then you just call axes.x, and then you say 0 in the middle because that's, we don't want to change anything on the y, and then you call joystick movement dot axes dot y, but you put that on the z because it's a 2D vector. It's gonna go x and y, but we can convert that to an x and z to project it on a flat surface. Then you want to say move x is equal to forward axes dot transform dot, not transform point, sorry, dot transform dot forward multiplied by direction dot x multiplied by speed. So what this is doing is this is making it so that this direction is getting applied, and you also probably want to set this to z, sorry, because the forward is z. So basically what this is saying is, basically it's basically saying, hey, project this on a flat surface so that we move forwards based on the forward axis rotation. So this is where we take our forward axis and say move it forwards, move it on this z axis on the blue line, so that where we're looking it's going to apply a force. I'm really sorry for my very, very bad explanations. I'm just trying my best here. And it also the value at the top should not be called move y, it should be called move z. And then we're going to set move x is equal to forward axes dot transform dot right multiplied by dot x, or direction dot x multiplied by speed. Then what you're also going to do is have a void fixed update, and then we're going to have an update position and an update rotation, and in down here we're going to make a void update position. Going to take a long time, so all we're actually going to do is use rigidbody.move position, which should be good for any of your needs. It still has collision and everything, so we're just going to call move x plus move z in here, and that should be it. We should be pretty much good to go. There's also one more thing we got to say. We got to say this dot transform dot position plus move x plus move y move z. So rigidbody.move position just is a more stabilized way of moving a position. Having the speed set to 4,000, no, I'm gonna regret that because he's just gonna like shoot off into the distance. Yeah. So you actually kind of want the force at like 1 with move position, because it doesn't really factor in weight in the body. That was still way too high. So I'm going to try like 0.02. I remember that, so I had to set it that low on my old one. So now you can see that it moves at a consistent rate wherever we're looking. Wait. No? Doesn't take into factor wherever we're looking? Oh, I didn't activate any of these rotation and position constraints. So now wherever we look around, you'll see that it will move us in that direction. So we've accomplished one of those things. Now I feel like we should get the hand to body connection working before we dive into quaternions and rotation. So in the fixed update, we're going to make a function called climb, and all we're going to do is call it down here as a void. So we're going to say void climb, and then we're going to say we need to make a vector3 climb to right, or climb direction right, and we're going to say this is equal to handr dot get component dot game object dot get component physics hands dot direction, or dot pause, and then you're going to make one for the left as well by just copying. So we're going to make left, and then this is going to equal to hand L, and then all you're going to want to do is just say this dot add force, rb dot add force, the op negative climb direction right, and then you're just going to make a second one for the left. The reason we do it negative is because we wanted to add in the opposite direction, obviously. Now people would say, wouldn't this move you all the time because force is constantly being applied? But as long as your mass is high enough to basically take into consideration the fact that, you know, if this force isn't greater than this, don't move it, because force takes into account mass. So we could create a little stand like this, and now if I actually go into VR, we'll be able to climb this sucker. So if I grab my hands before it pushes me off, because it's pushing against my body. Yeah, it's pushing. But there's one more thing we have to do actually. We have to give these the hands. We need to make a layer for hands and a layer for player, and then you go edit project settings, and then you say player does not collide with hands. This is so that if you push against your body, the hands won't move you. So you give these the hands layer, hit yes, change children. Actually, you might have to do this again, because if you do that, then you want to give this the hands layer. Now you'll see that we have our two hands. We could walk over to something, and when we press on it, as you can see, we climb. It moves us up. We can go left, right. We can push ourselves back from it. If we was to get a hand behind it, we could pull ourselves closer to it. When we're climbing, we can pull ourselves closer to it if our rigid body wasn't so big. Now all is left to do is rotation. So yeah, you can see we could even fit these little sockets in and just do the climbing off that. So we can go left, right, forwards, backwards. So it's really universal. When we push our hands together, all the collision works. So you can see if we don't move it far enough, there'll just be normal collision with the hands. If you press them far away this side, the force will just be equal, so you won't move. If you get low, it works in all kinds of situations. So all that's left to do is just do the rotation, which is a quaternion, which we have to dive into really quick. So rotation calculator, we just want to call rotation. We made that vector 3 at the top. We want to say that's equal to a new vector 3 joystick rotation. See, this is where that masking comes into play, so we can get rid of the position, so it's not going to be taking a value from the position. Dot axes dot x, and then we can just call 0 0, because we don't need to take any other inputs from anything else. And we say q, the quaternion we made, is equal to quaternion dot angle axes rotation, and then forward axes dot up. So this is basically going to make it so that we can rotate, and we also need to call .x for this, so it just takes this value. And then update rotation, all we have to do is say this, no, we need to say rb.move rotation, and then we say this .transform.rotation multiplied by our quaternion. So angle axis is a different way of rotating around a certain axis, and we're calling our axis here, which is the up value of forward axis, which is going to be at our head. So it's constantly going to be rotating around our head. We also want to make a little float up here called like sensitivity or rotation sensitivity. And what we're going to do down here is just on the rotation calculator, I'm just going to call rotation x multiplied by sensitivity, and now we should be all good. We can set sensitivity to like 1 because the rotation, as I said, is going to be fast, just like the position. Grab R via our hands, and now I could be able to turn whenever I rotate when I press my right stick rotate, it will rotate me. So as you can see, it will just turn me around. Let's say I'm climbing on a wall, I can still use the rotation. I can move, rotate around the scene, it's all smooth. Snap turning is another thing that I have to get into, because I don't really use snap turning in my game, so I've never really experimented with it. But that will be a new tutorial coming up soon. If you enjoyed this one, please remember to leave a like and comment what you'd want to see me talk about, because I want to devote this channel purely to VR physics. So yeah, just like tell me what you guys want. Like the video, comment, subscribe, do whatever you want to do. I'm really bad at this. I'm really sorry, but yeah, thank you guys for watching.